Jager Dave, everyone. It's good to be back. I've been hearing from a few people recently that you've been missing my videos, and I've been missing making them. So it's nice to be back and to be able to share some more thoughts with you. Today's video is about what makes art of living practices, in particular the sky breath meditation, different from other practices that are available at this time. I was chatting with my colleague the other day, and she was expressing some hesitation around learning meditation. And when I asked her to tell me why, she said, I feel like the word meditation is being used by so many different people to mean so many different things right now. And I feel like I really get where she's coming from. I mean, these days, people have an appetite for meditation. Many people have acknowledged and understood that there is great benefit in learning to manage our own minds and using meditation as a tool to do that. But there are so many different practices available and so many different ways to access something that is being called the name meditation that it's hard to figure out, well, what's the right practice for me and where am I going to get the most benefit? So I wanted to talk a little bit about what makes sky breath meditation, or offered by the Art of Living Foundation, what makes it different. So sky, for those of you who may or may not have watched my previous videos, stands for Sudarshan Kriya Yoga, and it's the signature technique that's taught in the Art of Living Foundation. So the first thing that makes sky different is that it is not a monastic practice. So there are certain practices that are being taught today that were originally intended to be taught in a monastery and practiced by people who have chosen a life of seclusion from society. As you can imagine, the life of a monk living in seclusion is quite different than the life that you and I lead. Our lives might include jobs, family, traffic, social media. So the kinds of practices that are beneficial for people who've chosen to live out in the world are different than the kinds of practices that are intended and meant to be beneficial for those who've chosen a life of seclusion. Sky is a practice that is intended for those of us who've chosen to live in the world. The next thing that makes sky breath meditation different is the emphasis on the breath. So there's a lot of meditation practices out there that are about managing the mind from the level of the mind. Now that's pretty difficult. Telling your mind what to do, using your mind to tell your mind what to do, usually is pretty difficult. That's like when you lie in bed and you're like, sleep, come on, sleep already. We all know that that's quite challenging. The breath is more tangible and more easy to control than the mind. And so using the breath as a tool to bring the system into a state of meditation is easier for many, many people. I've lost count of the number of people that I've taught who thought that they couldn't learn to meditate, who thought, I can't do meditation, it's too hard, it's too difficult, I've tried it before, it didn't work, and then find that when they use the breathing techniques, that it's easier to glide right into that meditative state. The next thing that makes Art of Living programs different, the Sky Breath Meditation course in particular, is that Art of Living has a very rigorous training process, a very rigorous credentialing process. So you can't call yourself an Art of Living teacher without having gone through at least 700 hours of training, usually over a number of years of time. So when you take an Art of Living course, you know that you're in really good, really experienced hands. And that does make our courses unique and special in that you know that you're with somebody who's spent a lot of time on their own personal development as well as their own spiritual development. Another thing that makes our practices unique is the amount of science behind what we do. So Art of Living has a very active research department, and we have a ton of research that clearly indicates that there's a lot of benefits of the sky breath meditation. There's many benefits, and I won't get into all of them here. Maybe we'll save that for another video. But in particular, there's 4 that I'm going to highlight. Better sleep, reduced depression, reduced anxiety, increased well-being, as measured by increased prolactin, the well-being hormone. Solid, over 70 studies published in peer-reviewed journals clearly indicating sky breath meditation has a lot of value, a lot of benefit, scientifically backed benefit. Another thing that makes the sky breath meditation and the art of living unique from other practices is that it is part of an ancient tradition. There is a lineage of masters that you can follow that goes back thousands of years. And all of the techniques that we teach are part of the yogic tradition, that ancient yogic tradition. Many times in the West, when we think of the word yoga, we just think of the body postures that we use when we go to a yoga class. But yoga actually has 8 limbs, and art of living courses and practices cover all of those 8 limbs, including the postures, or the asanas as they're called, but so much more about the tradition and the philosophy as well. The last thing that I'm going to highlight in terms of what makes our practices different is that art of living has a living master, Sri Sri Ravi Shankar. And so history has had many, many amazing, fantastic teachers. And there's nothing wrong with taking guidance and knowledge from a teacher who has passed on, who's shared knowledge, valuable knowledge in the time period in which they lived. But there is something really unique and special about being connected to a teacher who is still alive. That when you're uncertain about something or when you're curious about something, I know that I as a teacher am able to connect to him directly and say, clarify this for me. Clear this up. I'd like to understand this better. There is something, he travels all around the world. He does many large public programs, and being able to be connected to a master who is currently still teaching actively, and know that all of the teachers that you're taking the course from are actively taking instruction and guidance directly from him is a really unique experience, to be able to get knowledge from somebody who is still alive and is still sharing the knowledge that he feels is most relevant for us to hear in this time and place. There's 2 other things I want to share. I'll be honest, I can't speak to them from my own personal experience, but I have heard them numerous times from my students who've started out in other traditions of meditation and have ultimately found a home and settled into a peaceful place within art of living practices. And the one thing that I've heard several times from people who've come from many different traditions and practices is that the Sudarshan Kriya Yoga brought them to a deeper experience than anything that they'd ever experienced before. That yes, they were absolutely getting benefit from their prior practices. They had more focus, or they felt more relaxed, they felt calmer, whatever that was, but that they found that they had a much deeper experience after Sky. And they went, I didn't even know I could go this deep, but wow, this is incredible. The other thing that I've heard from a number of my students who've experienced other practices before is that their previous practice was kind of dry, and that their experience of Sky was vibrant, joyful, juicy. And that really was different from their prior experiences. So that's a little bit about sky breath meditation and what makes the techniques taught in art of living different from some of the other traditions out there. So if you're somebody who's been looking at the wide variety of meditation options available these days and wondering what makes one different from the other, I can't speak for all the different techniques and traditions that are out there, but I will speak for what I teach and what I offer. And these are some of the differences. So just to summarize, sky breath meditation is designed for people who live in the world. Many people share that sky breath meditation is easier to learn than other techniques because of its focus on the breath. Sky breath teachers are highly trained, have spent a lot of time learning and mastering the techniques that they teach. Sky breath meditation is well researched and supported by a lot of background. Art of living is part of an ancient tradition that is thousands of years old. Art of living has a living teacher, a living master who's currently still on the planet sharing this knowledge with the world and adapting as the world adapts. And many people have shared with me that their experience of sky breath meditation was deeper than their previous spiritual practices and more vibrant and joyful than their previous spiritual practices. If anything that I've shared with you today resonates with you and you feel like it might be time for you to register for a sky breath meditation course, I will post the link to my next course in the comments. Would love to have you come. And we'll also post the link to the Art of Living research page if anybody's curious about reading that. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining me. Jai Guru Dev.